And the pledges. Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity we have to serve our fellow man. We thank you so much, Father, for the Holy Spirit, who, if we will invite him in, will lead our steps and give us wisdom. We thank you so much, Father, for the wonderful people who give up their time and effort and their dedication. I thank you so much for this county and for this city and for the opportunities that are available here for our citizens. Help us to do good work today. I pray these things in the special, precious, holy name of Jesus Christ and for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Boyd.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Be seated. First thing on our agenda today is public comments on any item on the agenda. This is something new. I think this is the first time we've done this in this meeting.
It's new legislation that passed just this last year.
Yes, sir. And so is there any public comments on any item on the agenda? Let the record show I don't see anything. All right, we'll go to the next one. Approval of minutes from September 26, 2019 board meeting. You have a copy of the minutes that's been sent to y'all in your packets. After you've had a chance to peruse or ask any questions, we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented by our administration.
I move we accept the minutes.
Have a motion, second, to accept the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. It passes. Number 4 on the agenda, presentation and acceptance of annual audit for the year ended September 2019. And there he is. Come forward, sir.
Yes, sir. Mike Raines, Finance Director for the City of Abilene. What you have in your packet is the audit from last year, last September 30th of 2019, that was finished in March of last year. It was audited in conjunction with the city's audit, and the opinion given by BKD, the auditors, were on page 2 or 3 of that packet. And it says, in our opinion, the 2019 911 Emergency Communication District information is fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the 2019 basic financial statements of the city. So basically, that's a good opinion. That's what you want to see in the audit. Page 70 is your balance sheet for last September. You had total assets of $7.3 million, which was about a $78,000 increase over the previous year. Accounts payable went up. It was $352,000 at the end of September. And your fund balance was $6.966 million, which is a decrease of about $137,000. The next page, on page 71, shows your revenues and expenditures for the year. Total revenues were $2,863,000. That was a $275,000 increase over the previous year, primarily from your wireline service fees and investment earnings. Expenditures were $3 million. That was about just under $1.5 million increase over the previous year. And you'll see in that last item, the communication center equipment for $1,503,000 was predominantly what caused that increase. So overall, your fund balance went down $137,000. $7.1 million was there the year before, leaving you with the $6,966,000. And finally, page 72 compares your financial results to the budget. You'll see total revenues finished $143,000 over budgeted amounts, and expenditures were $306,000 under what was budgeted, so you were to the good about $450,000. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any question from the board? Does this need a motion?
Motion to approve.
I can't remember. Well, let's just put it on. We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, sir. All right, the next item on our agenda is the consideration and action regarding the ESINet upgrade for Abilene Police and Taylor County Sheriff's Department. And I think this came from Mr. Boyle.
Yes, sir.
Right ahead.
EZNet is a
How do you say
IP-based, EZNet.
EZNet, okay, go ahead.
It's an IP-based emergency services IP network. It's a necessary building block for next generation 911. And just a point of note, we are the only 911 district in the region that does not have it yet. So we encourage you to approve this so we can move forward with next generation 911.
So tell us a little bit about what this EZNet does, so everybody that's here can understand.
So it fosters redundancy within the system. It's a IP network within an IP network, so if you have call failures, it automatically fails over and you don't lose any calls. It also enables the ability for callers to use their smartphones to send pictures and videos and things like that to the dispatcher while people are en route to the scene.
And I know Jody is here, and I know her because of what she does. Has this been an anticipation item that you guys have been looking forward to?
I know it's coming. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know that it's coming.
Right. And has there already been plans made in the sheriff's department for utilizing these new services? Okay. How about the city of Abilene?
Is Becky here?
There you are.
No.
No, it's the same. We expect it, but we don't really know enough about it to make those plans yet.
Okay. So if we do this now and we start paying this year, how's it going to benefit us?
Well, we should have it in place by the end of next fiscal year if we start the process now. And then we can go ahead and with the new versions of Vesta that Jody is presumably going to receive, then they'll be able to use the services then.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions?
So when does the charges start, when we get it installed?
Once it's installed, yes.
And when is that projected?
We don't know exactly yet, sometime in the middle of next fiscal year.
Which would be 2020, 2021?
Yes.
Okay. So is this something that other places are using already, or?
Everybody is already using it except us. In our region. All the cogs are on EZNet already.
The cogs?
Mhm.
Okay.
I
Any
can
other?
see a lot of evidentiary value, I think, in that being able to send pictures and audio and stuff, because when the crime's in progress or when an accident happens before the vehicles are moved and so forth, I think it's great.
So using this EZNet, does this enable us to begin doing that, or does this just provide us the infrastructure and we will need further programs in order to enable sending those pictures?
My understanding is that this will enable us to utilize that technology.
But that's just 911 that we're
Yes,
funding.
yes.
So like Vincent can't use it with her emergency management, I couldn't use it.
No.
Has to be 911.
This is for call takers and dispatchers only.
And is this going to be a recurring cost of $350,000 a year?
Year one will be $350,857. Years 2 through 5 will be $300,000 or $430,000 annually
So $1.5 million,
over a 5-year period. Yes,
and again,
that will become normal operating costs for us
$1.5 million a year,
every 5 years.
$1.5 million every 5 years. Okay. I think if you could put EZNet on for a little while, we might get an OptiNet or something. What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is to proceed and approve.
Okay, we have the recommendation from our administration to receive and approve this This is part of the scheduled upgrade that's been going on in 911s for a long time.
This is the path to next generation 911.
We've discussed this in the past. I understand, I didn't know the price tag was gonna be quite as big as it is, but that's probably my fault, because I didn't listen to you.
That's,
And I will take completely, but it is something that we need to probably do, in my opinion. Any other discussion from the board?
Just to clarify, the charge for this year that would go into our next budget would be around the 350 mark.
as I understand it, once it is up and running, the clock will start ticking on year one.
Yeah.
So at whichever point it is installed and,
So we may get a half a year
Correct.
charge. Yeah, okay.
And it could be pushed over to the next year's budget.
absolutely.
I just know from the last few board meetings that I've been to, our 911 system, we've not talked about money going to upgrade and increase and do good with the 911 system itself. We've always talked about helping other people. But this is part of the 911 board's obligation, is to keep our 911 capabilities up to snuff, so that when everybody comes online, it's already got the capabilities of doing that there.
Yes, sir.
And there's more to come.
Yes, sir.
And we may, and it's not on the agenda today, but that might be a good thing to put out to all the board members of the things that are in the future, just because it helps us to understand about the limitations of our budget.
Yes, sir.
All right, do I have a motion? Have a motion from Gene Detman, a second.
Second.
Vincent, all in favor of accepting this, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the discussion and consideration and action regarding budget strategy for dispatch staffing reimbursements. I'm looking forward to this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Board. It's my pleasure to be here in front of you. A little more than a year ago, the administration received some guidance from the board that we really need to take a deep dive and look at how we were recommending dispatch reimbursements. And what you have in front of you are kind of two pieces of paper. The first one just kind of gives you a rundown on what's on the attached spreadsheet. But what I'd like to do is speak from that spreadsheet for just a minute here. So the top portion of that, kind of the figure one, is just some basic data that was relevant to the discussion on how we want to proactively address dispatch staffing reimbursement over the coming years. So we wanted to collect some information that we had available to us and make sure we painted that picture. The second group tab figure is about jurisdictional data, so that talks about the calls and the cost per call and all of that information. The third one, which was a direct request from the board, is to take a look at what our fund balance was and what the projections were on that. And so we're starting a trend here where at each board meeting we'll be updating this for the future, so you can actually see what the fund balance is and what the anticipated expenses are coming out of that, and if we have unfunded issues or anything else, as the chair just mentioned with EZNet. The fourth one is the one I want to pay a little bit of attention to, because here's where our administration recommendation falls into. So historically, when we looked at dispatch staffing reimbursement, the county dispatch operations were about 30% and 42% specifically for the city. And so you can see that there's kind of a lack of a logical flow to that. So one of the things that we did was come up with a couple of principles of looking at how does the 911 board reimburse its primary function, which is dispatch services. So we wanted to look first and foremost at what our anticipated expenses were, if we could project that out a couple of years, 3 to 5 to be exact, and make sure that whatever recommendation we came up with was sustainable. That's number one. Number two, it had to meet the transparency test. So was there a way that we came up with this formula, and can everybody understand what it is? A percentage of officially budgeted staffing positions within both dispatch centers is a logical flow for that, and is transparent. So I already talked about sustainability, that's a big one for us, and is it appropriate? So when we looked at the forecast and the budgeting for the next 3 to 5 years, we came up with a recommendation that hovers right at 60%. So each dispatch operation submits a budget annually for their staffing positions. We would recommend that the 911 board reimburses each one of those dispatch centers for 60% of that budgeted staffing cost. And we do that. The great news about this type of model is it gives us an opportunity to check ourselves every year as we move in and revisit it. And I think that's probably one of the better recommendations that you've seen in the last couple of years, where we actually took the time to do an analysis. Staff did a wonderful job taking a look at this and coming up with something that we thought was reasonable and sustainable for the board.
So it's 60%. Pardon me, were you done?
Yes, sir.
At 60%, which is your recommendation as administration, would our sheriff's department and our Abilene PD, would they be getting close to, if not more than what they're getting now?
More.
That's what I thought. And that more at 60% would carry on each year. And so if the city of Abilene brought in a dispatch budget of whatever it is, they'll receive 60% of that. Taylor County Sheriff's Office, whatever budget they bring in for dispatch, they'll receive 60% of that, right?
Right, but it's limited to staffing budgeting,
I
not just
understand.
budget.
Staffing, that's all we pay anyway.
Right.
Correct? Unless there's,
There's been some incidentals over the years.
yes. But mainly it's for staff,
Yes.
okay? So where does that leave Ty and Merkel?
If we're reimbursing the dispatch costs, and this is probably a discussion that the sheriff will want to have with us outside the board, but if we're reimbursing 60% of a dispatch center's actual staffing,
Yes.
then there has to be something different that goes on between the county that's providing that staffing services to Ty and Merkel.
I got you.
So it's probably a follow-on discussion after the board considers this.
I got you. And so your recommendation, if I'm understanding correctly, is that we adopt this 60% staffing, dispatch staffing for the city of Abilene and Taylor County Sheriff's Department.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any discussion on the board? And I'm sure there will be.
I was wondering, how did it get out of balance in the past?
I'm still new here, so I don't have that historical knowledge. I don't know if Ed wants to opine on that.
On occasion, one entity or the other would bring forth a request to fund one telecommunicator here or one telecommunicator there, and just over time, it just got out of balance.
Nobody ever looked at the percentage, I guess?
No,
until recently.
we had a really high turnover for a few years, and nobody took a serious look at it, no.
Till we got Ed.
And how was the 60% come about? How did you,
We actually started with a variety. In the bottom of the spreadsheet, you'll see a start at 10%, then we looked at 20%, we looked at 30%, we looked at 40%. The reason we settled on 60% is because it actually allows us to get closest to break even each year without either generating a severe increase or decrease in fund balance. So that's why we think that looking at this every year is really helpful for the board, so we can ebb and flow that if we need to. But that was the 60% figure allowed us to spend our revenues coming in, but not negatively affect the fund balance or positively affect the fund balance.
does it take into consideration, because from time to time, the city or the county brings up those extra things that we need, does that take any kind, is there any kind of factoring?
Well, if you're talking about equipment
Yes.
and those kind of things,
Right.
this is just staffing.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Those other things are a separate issue from what he's talking about here.
Okay.
You look like you're about to say something.
If you look at figure 3 on the spreadsheet, we built in a contingency with some of the items coming up, and we've also maintained a reserve in the fund balance for those items as they come up.
And I think we're obligated to make sure that those are present at each annual board meeting so you can make decisions based on the day and the latest projections. Things will change, but we should be providing this at each board meeting so you can get a snapshot of where we're going.
Yeah, that's a great deal.
Just for the audience and the other board members, would you or Ed explain the hours that were spent in figuring all this all out?
I'll let you take that one.
In a word, substantial.
Yes, it was a substantial deal. And this was at the board's request at the last meeting because we did have some discrepancies that were very obvious to me the last time we did. And I just want to tell you thank you very much for bringing this.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion from the board?
Is this, I'm not sure if it's apples and oranges, is this gonna affect some of the items later in the agenda when we talk about Ty and Merkel?
Probably so.
Okay. I guess
All right. Anybody have a motion for me?
I move to accept the motion and say 60%.
Have a motion to accept the 60% staffing for Abilene and Taylor County dispatches. Have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the discussion, consideration, and action regarding Taylor County Sheriff's Office hardware refresh.
So the Taylor County Sheriff's PSAP, CPE equipment and consoles are woefully out of date. They're on extended warranty right now, and I believe, are you still running 7, Jody? Still running Windows 7. So we strongly encourage you to approve this $494,317 so we can get that equipment replaced as soon as possible.
So just for the board and anybody else that's listening, explain how that reflects directly to the 911 calls.
It is all the backroom equipment and the consoles that the call takers and dispatchers use.
It's a completely 911.
100% 911.
Thank you very much. Is there any question over this?
How old is that equipment? I remember when it was put in?
Probably 7 years. It's close to 7 years. They're well over a year out of standard warranty.
And so we could expect to need a refresh?
Every
in
5
another
years.
5 or 6 years?
Yes, sir.
If they tap a little easier on the keys, it'd last another year.
I think it's Windows 7, man.
All right, any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the replacement in the hardware refresh for Taylor County Sheriff's Office.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is item number 8, discussion, consideration, and action regarding Taylor County Sheriff's Office requests for UPS batteries and radio control computers.
I'll turn it over to Sheriff Bishop for this request.
This UPS system is one for the 911 system. About every 5 years, we have to replace the batteries in this particular system, and then we're getting a little past that due date. I didn't get a quote in time to replace the entire system, but just for information, to replace the entire system is about $27,000, just under $27,000. But the quote that was submitted for those UPS is I think it's about $2,500. roughly to replace all, no, sorry, that's the other quote. It's
$8,600.
$4,400 to replace just the batteries. And of course, the dispatch computer, the computers that control the radios are running Windows 7, and they are giving us fits. There's 3 of them. Now, when we did the dispatch upgrade a couple of years ago, y'all purchased all the new equipment, 2, 3 different systems there, so now we need to replace the other 3 systems. So the total bill is $8,650.
Did you look into this?
I did. There is precedent for the UPS batteries and precedent for the radio control computers as well.
What's your recommendation?
Our recommendation is to fund it.
This all has to do with 911.
Yes, sir.
Is this different than the hardware refresh?
This is the uninterruptible power source that all the equipment runs off of.
Right, but what about the computer?
Those 3, go ahead.
All of it. It all runs off the
It's
UPS
part of
system.
that system?
Yes.
It's not included in the hardware?
It's in addition to the hardware refresh that you already approved.
Questions, comments? Do you have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Have a motion and second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next one is discussion, consideration, and action regarding Taylor County Sheriff's Office request for certification pay increase for telecommunicators. I don't think I have anything on that. Oh, yeah, here it is.
Back in 2015, dispatch supervisors for both agencies came to y'all to request for certification pay. That, to our knowledge, has never been adjusted, and after doing some research, we've come up with some numbers of what we would like to see our certification pays raised to. Some agencies don't post their information, but we've found a few that do, and we're lagging quite a bit behind. The numbers that we have proposed are about half as much as what we've been told that the city of Abilene is getting, and we know that we've been told that the city helps fund the rest of the certification pay, so we cut it in half, and we wanted to include certification pay now for basic telecommunicators where we didn't have that before. So for basic, we'll start out at $1,000 and then go up $1,000 from there to 2, 3, and 4 for master certifications. So, and I don't, with the new item that y'all approved on the 60%, I don't know where the certification pay falls into that compared to where we're currently operating. But I know for basic, currently, nothing is being paid for, and then it jumps, and I think base intermediate's only $50 a month. So I know it's a pretty good increase, but these guys and gals deserve it for what they have to put up with.
So Jody's here, and
Becky.
I guess Wayne's not here no more.
No.
No, Wayne's prettier now.
Huh?
Wayne's prettier now.
Yeah, I've been the new Wayne for a couple years now.
So I know that our administration has looked at this, and I know that they've had some discussions about, because this is staffing also. It boils down to this is staffing. Okay, so we set a precedent in 2015 when we approved this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is the 2015 document where we approved this for 12 months, and it's been going on yearly since 2015. Is that, am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the administration's recommendation on this?
What the administration would like to see would be a joint request to standardize it across PSAPs. because it seems like we're playing one side or the other in a competing market. If this is being used for recruiting and retention, we would like it to be even across the board. So, but what that leaves out is that Abilene PD, PSAP, has already went to the city and requested funds to up their certification pay, and the county has not. So the increase that the sheriff is asking for is 1,000% for basic, 333% for intermediate, 250% for advanced, and 222% for master. If we could get a standardized request in the form of our original one that had a per month, per level amount on it, then maybe it would be easier to entertain.
Okay, so the 911 supervisors and the communications manager, what you're saying is that if they got together and put a unified request in as this one was, that you would like to hear that at a later date?
I think that we would need more time to look at that and look into it a little closer.
So what I'm getting,
Right now for fiscal year 20, APD has budgeted $126,000 for their certifications. The total cost of the sheriff's request for this year will be $33,000. So we're looking at incurring over $160,000.
so have we funded anything for APD this year?
Not except for the pre-approved 2015 amounts,
And have we funded the sheriff with the pre-approved 2015 amount?
as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's also my understanding that, unless I misunderstood something, with this request, the city did not want to participate in it. That's why it's just me making this request.
Was there a reason for that you know of? Ed?
Not that I know of.
It was said that way because they already have the funds, they're already getting, I don't remember the exact numbers, but more than what we requested. So, didn't really know how to request jointly more money whenever they're already getting it from the city. I mean, that might fall back on me, I'm not sure. I mean, how do they request an extra $1,000 from y'all when they're already getting it from the city? Does that make sense? I don't know the better way of explaining it.
So,
So I had contacted the city to do this joint request, and that's whenever I found out a few years ago, they went to the city and asked for their amount.
but if the cities, if they went to the city, why are we giving them, the city of Abilene, anything?
Because that was already approved before, so 2015 is what they were getting from y'all. I mean, I guess if we could figure out a way to maybe y'all reimburse some of what the city already pays them, that's the only, I mean, that's what me and Becky kind of discussed a little bit, but I didn't call her back and discuss it anymore for that because I just didn't.
Mr. Chair, I think that that's one of the reasons that Ed suggested that we take a look at this. I don't think that we're altogether on the same page, and we need to be before we bring it to the board. I think it's been back and forth, and given light of the board approval of the 60%, some of the requests may change. And we probably need a little bit of an opportunity to provide the same diligence that we did in that recommendation for this one.
Okay, so I don't want to do away with this because we I mean, that's a big hickey to take all at once. But along with the other numbers that we're going to end up with the 60%, I would agree with Mr. Von Wolfrat, that we need to have an understanding. I mean, if the city of Abilene is not requesting anything from the board, why, we don't need to give them anything, right? Is that right?
My understanding is they're taking what we already approved is just supplementing that with city funds.
Okay. So,
What we don't want to wind up in is a similar situation that we had with percentages of
that's
telecommunicators.
exactly what I'm thinking. So we
Right.
need to figure out if this is gonna be staffing, do we need to look at this later with the 60%? And make sure, but if we're gonna include this in the 60%, we don't need to do nothing. But that's what I'm trying to figure out, is it too big a hickey for our dispatches to take without looking at the certification? Because that's a lot of money.
It is.
So how much do we pay on certifications now?
I don't have the current year's numbers, but it was 34,000 in 2015
For both entities?
for both entities. That would increase to about 159,950.
That's 3 times.
Yes.
Listen, I am a dispatcher's friend, and I want anything the dispatchers can have to have. So, and I don't want there to be any kind of problem with funding the dispatchers. I just, with what I'm hearing today, I don't feel comfortable yet doing the right thing, because I don't know what I'm doing. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, sir. We'd like the opportunity to work with them.
How long will that take?
I think we can do that in 30 days.
Sheriff, did you hear that? And Jody, if you work with the city,
Yes, I'll work with the city. I just,
not Wayne.
Becky.
Right.
Becky,
Becky Adams, please forgive me.
I'm gonna start wearing a name tag.
Maybe it's because you got your mask on.
Maybe.
Oh, now I recognize you. But I think we need to address that in that kind of deal and look at those numbers again and see how that's gonna work out, because I don't know what the difference is gonna be for the 60%. But maybe that'll cover that. I have no idea, and that's what we need to find out, in my opinion. So how do we get this off the deal? Table it?
Yeah, I'd say table it for research.
All right. Will you make that motion?
I did.
Gene Detman makes a motion to table this agenda item for research. To have a second?
Second.
Vincent, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Discussion, consideration, and action regarding the City of Merkel's request for reimbursement for FY19, FY20, and FY21. Is that where we are?
Yes, sir.
That's where we are.
Mr. Campbell, do you care to speak?
The idea that everybody in Taylor County has good access to emergency dispatching is the point I thought of the 911 in the first place. I wondered if the board doesn't have like an EDC or something where they have rules and guidelines that guides the allocation of funds. Instead of, if this 60%, that Mr. Von Wolfrat was speaking of, that it looked at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% of the funds y'all take in as a means of spending money seems kind of counterproductive. Why wouldn't you look at City of Abilene's income and expenses to pay for their people? Because the people that, I think I can talk about it now, the people that, policemen in Abilene, dispatchers in Abilene pays more, and it's hard to get good help. And so I appreciate that there is some confusion, if nothing else, on what's the best way to allocate these funds. The City of Merkel used to have a secondary PSAP. We actually did our own dispatching. And so when I began in 2010 to come to these meetings and request funds, it was for reimbursement related to actual dispatching costs. And it was based, as y'all seem to prefer, that it was just the 911 dispatching costs, not dog, dead cats, or tree limbs, or any of the other things that small towns did. That's the way I've always made this request. It turned into something in the last few years 2018 meeting, the 2019 meeting, last year's meeting, that there's funds available, that you hand in there and see how much you can get. I don't think too much of that. I think the cities ought to run on their own the best they can, as the county should, City of Abilene, City of Myrtle, City of Tyne. But having said that, my actual request on this agenda item was reimbursement from 2018 for $15,000. This same confusion on how y'all were gonna fund reimbursement costs prevented the City of Myrtle from being on that agenda. If you've got my letter, it explains it in that letter. That was when I believe the City of Tyne got $15,000. I simply thought that that was something that was inadvertent, but unfortunate that the city didn't get anything, and we should have, under the previous line of thinking. So that 15, I would like to get as a simple reimbursement for a mistake that the board, or that the situation caused. The sheriff and I talked about this during that, and the discussion was going to be whether or not the money that the City of Myrtle might request just go to the sheriff's office instead of him billing us. Y'all give the money to him, it doesn't need to make a circle. I don't know what happened to that conversation. And last year, we had a request for that previous years that we got left off, and last year's. And last year's was tabled because there was going to be some discussion at a future meeting, again, it wasn't held because of COVID, to discuss a better means of funding the two smaller communities that have police departments and that do a good bit of emergency work in the county. And I haven't heard a peep about that, so I'm curious, if I'd like to know what y'all think. I mean, I'm not really asking for anything that's related to dispatching emergency services. And I feel a little funny about that, because these days, when someone sees a pocket, everybody goes for that pocket. And I mentioned socioeconomic conditions, asking about radios last year. Mr. Bull and I had a conversation. He suggested that I do make that request, and as soon as that request was made, he said, oh, wait, can't do that, we have to give everybody radios. Well, I haven't found that to be the case on the little research I've done. Socioeconomic conditions certainly can play a role in how you allocate funds that come from the public, whether 911 or taxes or anything else. So the City of Myrtle is going to survive without another penny from this 911 board. What I'm concerned is that the City of Abilene, with people on the board, and Taylor County, the disparity that you've noted, may end up affecting the northwest part of the county for my city. So that's my only concern. And I'll end by saying that I don't believe there's going to be any hard feelings on my part of the City of Myrtle if it turns out that Myrtle's never going to get another penny from this board for whatever inventive reason I can come up with. So I would appreciate you looking at the 15 from 3 years ago. The tie was funded that we weren't, and it was an oversight on somebody's part involved in this. Mike Saxton and I had conversations during all that, as did Sheriff and I. That would be a courtesy, I guess. The one that the chief from Tyne and I asked for last year that was tabled, there was no reason to believe that that was an unreasonable request, and I'd like to be funded for that one. This year's request, based on this discussion, seems unnecessary. We're not providing dispatch. It's ironic that the conversations I've had, I said a while ago, I'm going to end right here. The City of Myrtle could start a PSAP, get a CAD system, and then come back and ask y'all for 60% of all of that. Would that be a method for the city to do its dispatching instead of having to pay the sheriff's department? I mean, would that be legitimate?
Well, that's the way it used to be.
Yes, sir. And I don't really want to go back to that. I think the sheriff's department does us a really good job.
Sure they do.
And I'd like to ensure that that relationship between the county and the city stays good, and between each of us and y'all stays good, because y'all do have a significant amount of money coming in. This year's alone, I think you cleared about $685,000 of revenue over expenses. That's a chunk. $7 million budget. Does that mean we've just got to find a way to figure out how to spend the money based on percentages of how much you make, as opposed to legitimate expenses? Anyway,
I'm going to answer you. I'm going to answer you first, then I'm going to give our administration an opportunity to answer you.
Thank you all. I appreciate
every penny that comes through this board has to be associated with 911. It can't go for dog catchers. It's not any way to do it. It's against the law to do that. Yeah. Every penny goes for 911. Now, there have been requests out here that has to do with 911 in a roundabout way that the board has seen fit to fund. But I can tell you that nothing underhanded has happened and nothing disparaging has been done on purpose against Merkel or Ty, ever, since I've been on this board.
Did I insinuate that?
No, I'm just letting you know that that's the case because I watch that pretty darn close.
I believe you.
I do watch it pretty close. And the reason why we had this re-deal about the 60% was because of y'all's request last year. We couldn't figure out if we're going to do 911 and y'all don't have 911 anymore, how's it best going to serve y'all and serve the sheriff? And that's the recommendation that these two have come up with. Now, the board doesn't do the research. The board doesn't do the lawyer stuff. The board doesn't do any of that. What we do is we listen to what's presented to us from our administration, and then we go forward with whatever recommendations they have. Sometimes we don't agree, and it gets voted down. Sometimes we do. But most of the time, since this board's been here, and Mike, when we didn't fund their deal that year, there was nobody to present it.
I was there.
What happened?
As far as I know, we never received a formal request, and so that's why it wasn't on the agenda.
Okay, and if we didn't receive a formal request, the board, and again, I appreciate you a lot, but the board, if we don't have a formal request, we can't just say,
Agreed, that was my mistake. My communications were directly with the sheriff on how we might do this to avoid this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'll take responsibility. It could have gone through the sheriff's office just as easily as it did the city of Merkel, but I'll accept responsibility for that.
and
I'll
again,
withdraw that off the
yeah,
agenda.
I just don't want you to have a feeling that we got a fund here that's for dipping and snacking, because I mean, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 10, we spent almost $4 million because of a 911 upgrade. Had nothing to do with the city, had nothing to do with it. It had to do with what 911 sends down that we have to keep. That's why we have a fund budget to where that kind of stuff happens. And we got more on the horizon. That's why I said he can send out to the board and anybody else that's interested of what we got on the horizon that's going to have a large dollar figure. And those funds that since I've been on the board have always been designated 911, nothing else. And if it has been something else, it shouldn't have been. So
The furniture in an ABD is considered 911 because they've got to have a place to sit.
yeah, and
Air
now,
conditioning for the sofa rooms.
and now I'm going to turn this end of that over to Mr. Wolfrat and Ed, because maybe they can explain that better than I can, because I don't know.
No, I think you're correct, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would just clarify in the statements made is our percentage was not driven based on revenue. It was driven based on the 30 and 42% of staffing costs that the board had historically reimbursed both the county and city for, and then looking at the board's direction, what is our capacity to spend our money exactly where it's supposed to be spent, which is in dispatch centers and staffing. And that's how we came up with the ability to do it at 60%. I think that also changes the future reimbursement for Ty or Merkel or whatever, and we're looking at Merkel right now, and I think Ed's got a recommendation that we reimburse them for 19 and 20 fiscal years, because that's the time when we spent coming up with this new solution. But for fiscal 21, going forward, I think we'd be happy to sit down with both of them and Ty and figure out what's the best way to do that so everybody stays whole. Ed, did you want to add?
I have nothing to add.
Tell him about the chairs. That was his question.
So allowable expenses for the 911 district include all personnel and equipment to operate a PSAP. That does include air conditioners for the server and furniture and.
Security probably and everything. No, I understand, I just, it may look different to people that aren't in the know. And there are people out there that have a little bit of an idea what it's going to do. Layman.
I'd like to apologize for your request getting tabled last year while we were figuring all this out. But we do recommend approving the request for fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20. And fiscal year 21, I think we wrapped up in the 60%.
That's your recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Does the board have any discussion?
I have a question. I noticed that, Tide pays more than Merkel. But according to these two requests here, it's $25,000 a year for Tide and $20,000 a year for Merkel.
That's correct. That's what we pay is
Is that based on call load or?
That comes from, I think Jody and the sheriff could answer that. That's what our billing rate is for, I talked to, if I can, I talked to Sheriff Bishop, I think the median, the starting wage was 35,000, we're billed at 25. I didn't know what they were billing, so I know what we bill out of our building. I don't know why it's.
Yeah, it was off of call volume originally, and then we went up a little bit, after visiting. I think, if I remember correctly, a couple of years ago, after visiting with Ed and some others, we went up, I think, 5,000 for each one of them. And so, yeah, between the two of them, they pay for one dispatch.
I see. I guess the only other question for Mr. Campbell, in the first paragraph here of your submittal, it says even though you no longer operate a PSAP, you continue to maintain and monitor dispatching equipment and employ two telecommunicators.
We keep that radio right there exactly where it's at, and we have two basic communicators. I've kept that stuff in our budget because you never know what we have. And so we still have the ability to dispatch from City Hall. We don't have a CAD system, ways to keep up log the calls, much safer to have the sheriff's office do it. The computer, the SE stuff is over my head, but I'm sharp enough to know that that's where the world is going.
Sure.
Whether or not that's the only company, that's a legitimate expense, is a whole different deal. I didn't research it, but that's the reason we got to have those things. So no, I don't have any intention of trying to use a handheld radio or a base radio to do any of this. That's how I initially got started, and somehow between actually being reimbursed for actual costs, we come to where we are now, which appears to me to not necessarily be relevant. Jody does us a good job. The Taylor County Sheriff's Office serves the city of Merkel and the citizens of Merkel.
Any other discussion?
Ed, I might have to read through our statutes some, but, Mr. Campbell, I did have the same question and concern on the maintaining and monitoring dispatch equipment to employ two TQL certified telecommunicators. Do 911 districts and other jurisdictions or have the capability to fund those types of positions even though they're not an established PSAP?
I would have to dig into precedent on that. We are responsible for funding up to the point of answering at a PSAP. So if it's not a PSAP, I don't think that we would fund it.
Okay, it just seems like it comes in a different form. I wasn't sure if the PSAP actually included a certain type of criteria, so it might be something I have to read into.
The statute specifically states PSAP.
What statute is that in?
Health and Safety Code 772.
How about- Any other questions? Okay, so we have a board administration recommendation that the board fund 2020 and 2019. Is that correct?
Correct.
For a grand total of how much?
30,000.
$30,000. That is the recommendation from our 911 board administration. What is the board's desire on this?
And for clarity, FY '21 is going to be wrapped up in the 60% budget.
Correct.
And the reason we're not considering 2018, I guess, Mr. Boyle, was because there was no formal request at the time.
I believe they were reimbursed in 2018.
Or
We
not?
did not receive any. We had been, kind of got dropped off on the, trying to clean it up. People with 911 were aware that the city was interested, but we did not get a formal agenda item.
Do I have a motion?
I don't know, I'm still not clear on the 2018, I guess. You say we did reimburse?
That, apparently not. There was not a request in 2018.
But there was in 2019. We just tabled it or whatever. I
Yes.
see.
So the request that we have right now that's recommended from our administration is to fund 2019 and 2020 at $15,000 each year. That'd be for a total of $30,000 that would go to the city of Merkel.
I understand.
I move to fund the $30,000 request from the city of Merkel for 2019 and 2020 expenditures.
I have a motion to fund the $30,000 request by Vincent. Anybody second? Second by Mr. Detman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we go to the next item, item number 11, discussion, consideration, and action regarding the City of Ty's request for reimbursement for FY '20 and FY '21.
Last year, the City of Ty's request was tabled in the same manner as Merkel's while we were working on our budget strategy. We recommend the same thing, funding their request for 20 and not funding 21.
So that'd be a total of?
$25,000. Just a second, though. Mr. Campbell, did you say that your total charges from the county were $20,000?
Yes, sir, and I use call volume based on 911 calls.
Okay.
Only kind of,
Is that what you y'all charged? It was 20?
And that was, so that was 75% of their total cost that we funded Merkel. 75% of this request would be $18,750 in the interest of equity.
Okay, I'm good with whatever that is. It's just, if we're gonna fund 2019 and 2020, we need to know how much that is. If we're gonna fund 2019 and 2020 for type, we just need to know how much that is.
Okay.
So whatever that is, that's what we're voting to fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so,
The official request is $25,000.
And that's what we're billed. We're billed $25,000.
So Ty is requesting the full amount charged by the county, whereas Merkel requested 75% of the amount charged by the county. 75% of the amount that Ty is charged is $18,750.
but they requested the whole thing.
They requested the whole thing.
When we tabled it, their request was the whole thing.
Correct.
Okay. So what do you guys think? As far as I'm concerned, we do 2019 and 20, because we missed out on Merkel.
Yes.
We missed out on 1 year of Ty. So however we do that, I just need a number so we can go forward.
Administration recommends funding the request in the amount of $18,750 to make it the same as Merkel's request. Can I speak to that?
Sure.
real quick?
Yes.
We already heard from the sheriff that it's based on.
Here you go. I mean, everybody probably wants to hear.
Well, we already heard from the sheriff that it's based on call volume, and I think that we write these letters, and I don't think they make it to the board. Somebody on this board is a representative of the city of Ty, the city of Merkel, the city of Lon. Tuscola has constables, Merkel has constables, they don't pay for dispatchers. But our representative is absent, I will say that. And with the 60% that the city of Abilene has recommended to you as the advisor, that saves us a lot of problems. But it saves us a lot of time too, not coming to this meeting because we have no request what our citizens pay for in taxes. So as our representative to the 911 board, we did our call volumes to y'all. We put it in there. And in a city outside of Taylor County, and I think Jody can speak to this, we have a city hall and a police line. If a lady calls in and said her husband's not breathing and needs CPR and an officer responds, that's a 911 call. We don't touch the 911 system, you're right. But fire, ambulance, metro, we do respond to those. I think the ones on here that our peace officers know that, but they don't go in our count from the county. So to say that 18,000 is based on a percentage, I understand that. And I really appreciate the 60% more than you'll know because it takes us out of this argument and equation because honestly, from my standpoint, it's almost like taxation without representation. We have a representative, but we don't have a say in how we do it because we don't have a dispatcher. So it allows me to free up my day and at least I can deal with the sheriff and Jody who know our call volume and what they charge us. But last year's request was based on what we were told from the people who told us to do the letter. They didn't tell us to do a percentage. They said, give us what you pay for your dispatch. And that's what we were told to do. And that's what we turned in good faith.
Who told you that?
I can't remember. I got the email. I don't know if it was, I don't know who it was. Do you remember who it was?
It may have been me.
It was based on what we paid. That's what we did. We didn't know it was gonna be a percentage. So, and I'm like, Steve, it's not about pockets, but we need to know what we're going into. Now with 60%, at least we know. And I appreciate that. I wanna say thank you for that because it takes all the argument out of this. Because the way it was explained to me is not how it went down. And I felt kind of like, here we represent a city, but our citizens are forgotten because they're not within the county or whatever. And I always wondered how the state gets dispatched on the same channel and how constables and everybody else gets dispatched, but there's no charge fee. So our citizens pay this into this fund, but they don't get any say-so in it. That was my only concern. So I guess my point is whatever you decide is better than what we had because we left with zero. But I want to say thank you too for coming up with an equation to where we don't have to have tit for tat anymore, or they got, or you didn't get, or it saves us a lot of grief. And I appreciate that. But I also would say this, if you represent small cities, go see those cities, see how they operate. Because I've never seen it. I've never seen anybody stop by because our number of calls that come into 692-2610 is almost as high as our 911 calls. So you can't tell somebody it's not a 911 call.
And I have been there many times.
Oh, I know you have, but I'm just saying, but you're not our representative on this board. But I'm just saying that when you look at that, it's hard to tell somebody that's not a 911 call. Because in a small city of 2,000 people, which is getting ready to double in size here shortly, you know, how do you tell somebody that's not a 911 emergency? But it's also a very bifurcated town in the haves and have-nots. So how do you pay that, especially when the income's down? I think you guys took that out of our hands, which is good, because I think Jody and the sheriff and I can all come to that agreement. And I think this was done, and you know from past history, it was done because the dispatch services we had before, it was kind of, if somebody was there, if they didn't step out, Jody and her folks, I don't want to make this decision, they do us right 100% of the time. And we can't ask for better. But I think that what you guys have asked for has really helped us as a department and as a whole, because now it takes all the argument of what a percentage is. And I just want to say thank you for that. And if we get anything out of it, it helps us. But I still think it should be the whole amount because that's what we were requested to present to the board. I wasn't requested to give a percentage. I wasn't requested to break down calls by 911. But when you do that, and Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, if you pull out our 911 calls, it's just the Ty PD. That doesn't count the ones to the ambulance service, the fire departments, the assist. I just did a chase with the sheriff. It was a 911 call, but he gets credit for that call, but we don't. But if DPS has a 911 and they request our assistance, it never goes in our account. But then you know, we're paying for a service that it didn't go in that total count. That's all my point. But my main point is to say thank you for making that decision that kind of takes us out of it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think the administration is comfortable funding the requested amount because that's exactly what we just did with Merkel. There were
And that-
requested amounts that were tabled because we were studying the budget and trying to figure out the right ratio to do this with.
Okay, so I'm on the same page as you, and I think we should pay all of Merkel's costs for 2019 and 2020.
It's already done.
Okay, and then I think we should pay all of Ty's cost. And so all you have to do is find out from the sheriff exactly how much, or Jody, how much their cost, they were billed for those years, and that's what we can reimburse, and everything should be okay. I just need to know with Robert's Rules of Orders how to fix it up here, because we already approved one. Is that motion that we approved just a while ago in regard to Merkel, is that still accurate?
That is done. That is already carried.
And that was the total cost?
No, it was.
That's what we need to know. What was their total cost?
$40,000 would be their total cost for fiscal year 19 and
For
fiscal
2
year 20.
years? So that's
Correct.
$20,000 a year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what we need to pay Merkel, in my opinion, and we need to pay Ty $25,000, and we'll be done with this, we don't have to mess with it no more.
That's our recommendation as well.
Is that actually true? Because I thought
Okay.
Mr. Von Wolford suggested that while y'all fund 60 of that the other 40 may come from
That's
something else.
fiscal year 21, not 19 and 20.
Correct.
This is talking about your reimbursement that you asked for.
That 60 doesn't alleviate us still owing the sheriff's office.
Well, that's, I don't know how that's gonna work.
We're going to have to huddle on that one.
Mr. Chair, you'll have to rescind the previous motion and make a new motion for the new amount.
Can I just do that?
Or you can, whatever the difference is, make a new motion to, I think either way would work, just so that it's clear,
So make a new motion for the
So,
additional amount.
can I make a motion as the chair? Okay, I make a motion that in addition to what we voted on a while ago, we pay Merkel and Ty full funding for Merkel for 2020, for Ty for 2020 and for Merkel for 19 and 20, which is a total of $40,000 for Merkel and $25,000 for Ty.
Correct.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, let's move on. Praise the Lord. All right, budget time, fellas. Item number 12, discussion approval of revised FY 2020 proposed and FY 2021 budget.
You'll see on the monitor before you in a minute.
Oh, this is fancy.
Our original fiscal year 20 and our revised fiscal year 20 budgets. There's no notable changes with the exception of phone service. Our GigaMan network is outdated and becoming more expensive. We're in the process of replacing that with an ASE network now.
Our what network?
GigaMan. It's a GigaMan. It's a fiber network that we use for the 911 PSAPs. That was the change in our phone service item. And everything else stayed the same between our original budget and our revised. You'll see before you the items we've approved at this meeting in the fiscal year 21 proposed budget, as Mike adjusts them there. So
Where's Mike?
he's in the back there.
Doing a good job back there, Michael.
So you'll see that brings our expenditures up to $3,021,276. proposed in '21.
Questions by the board about the FY 2020 revised budget and the FY 21 proposed budget? Can the audience see what's on the
Yep.
screen? Good.
Chairman, is the bump to 60% gonna affect, not gonna affect that, or was it already in the revised?
If you'll look, he has already built that into the proposed budget. The highlighted items are line 40 there, general services and charges, or APD, and
Oh, it did increase.
line 28, other services and materials, account for the sheriff's office telecommunicators for the increase that you've already approved.
I see.
So general services and charges proposed is $1,255,718.
Yes, sir.
Good. Nice. Have you've been on this board longer than me, Gene. You remember what it used to be 10 years ago? Crazy.
Lord.
And we went from 63,000 to 565,000 in communications equipment because of the upgrades. correct?
Because of the sheriff's office CPE equipment upgrade, yes.
All right, does the board have any questions about any part of the budget? I'm really concerned about postage. I mean, it's $300. What do we spend $300 on for postage?
We have to mail the letters.
Okay, I guess we can settle for that then. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the FY 2020 revised budget and to accept the FY 2021 proposed budget.
I second.
You mean you have a motion?
Yes, I'm sorry, I have a motion.
Do I have a
to
second?
approve.
Gene Detman seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll go to item number 13, discussion and approval of setting the emergency service fee for FY 2021.
Administration recommends leaving the fee set at 6%.
Any questions on 6%? It's what it's been for
Ever.
ever. Do I have a motion? Make a motion. But before we vote on that, no, I guess we need to vote on it. Have a motion to accept the service fee. Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Before we dismiss, adjourn, I just want to tell Mr. Wicker that he served very well and honorably on this board, and it's been my pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I hope that whoever the city of Abilene gets as their representative is better, and that's going to be hard to do. Give him a big round of applause. Have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion? Second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.